Greetings YouTube, Captain Machine here, back for another video. And I do apologise about my lack of updates recently. I haven't pod faded or logged out for YouTube or disappeared or gone in elsewhere, so I'm sorry for the delays and things like that. And I thank you for all my 266 subscribers at the time of recording for sticking with me. It's greatly appreciated. It's a huge incentive for me to carry on, knowing that at least somebody out there is listening to me. So we're going to do our little trilogy, which I've been promising. So this is part one of a 3-part series for Paizo and Pathfinder. So, well, more precisely Pathfinder, but I'll be talking about Paizo first, because this is part one, and we're going to talk about Paizo, which is a company behind the Pathfinder RPG. Now, Paizo started out as a magazine company. This is probably educating the already knowledgeable, or whatever the popular equivalent of that phrase is, so stick with me, please. But basically, Paizo started out a magazine publishing company. They did Dungeon Dragon when TSR or Wizards of the Coast, whichever one gave it up first, decided they couldn't be arsed with it anymore. And basically they did it for quite some time. So if you were reading Dungeon or Dragon magazine during the third edition or 3.5, then you're reading Paizo material. For example, the Adventure Paths idea, which started with the Shackled City and went on from there. Age of Worms, in my opinion, is the best one they ever did. Started by Paizo, and that was kind of an idea that they figured out and went, you know what, this really works, this is what people want. And that's kind of the direction that D&D's been going in ever since. One day, 4th edition comes along, and Wizards of the Coast don't want Dungeon Dragon magazine anymore. Or they do, but they don't want to publish it. They want to do it in-house again, and they want to do it on the internet, and they want to charge you for it. And granted, there are a lot of people out there that like that. I must admit, when 4th edition came out and I was a bit about it, I still read Dungeon Dragon magazine that were on the Wizard website when it was free. The moment they started asking me to pay for it, I stopped reading it. So I have no idea what the current level of content is for that. I haven't gone out and torrented anything. I haven't asked other people for their logons. I just stopped reading it. I've lost all interest with it. Now, Paizo knew about this going to happen for quite some time, and they were prepared. And they had their own little magazine called Pathfinder. This is issue 1 of Pathfinder, also known as the Burnt Offerings. Which is a lovely little picture of a human fighter and some goblins on the rampage. There we go. And Pathfinder, when I first saw it, it was expensive. I mean, this is a perfect bound magazine, if you want to call it a magazine. 90 odd pages. I mean, I remember seeing books that came out from White Wolf that was smaller than this. And they're asking for a tenner for this. Or I think it was £10.99, whatever the equivalent is in US dollars, for this. And bear in mind, I just stopped buying Dragon magazine at £3 odd, maybe £4. So we talk about a huge price hike. And for me, I couldn't at the time see the benefit of it. It had adventure in the front, which didn't seem to be particularly standard. It's got background about a place that I didn't care about, and it's got some bump at the back, some monsters, some background about a civilization that's long gone, and a little story written from the first person perspective, like a diary. And I looked at it, and I bought it originally when it first came out, and I looked at it and went, you know what, I just think I've wasted £10. I left it at that. And it wasn't until much, much later, when the Pathfinder RPG beta got announced, that I looked at this again with hindsight. And after reading the forums and looking at this and reading all the material, I quickly and suddenly realised that this is an underrated classic, or at least it was in my opinion when it first came out. In here, you've got the first of 6-part Adventure Path. So every 6 issues, and they come out monthly, and it's always 90 odd pages, it's always perfect bound, it's always the top quality, full colour illustrations, the works. Every month without fail. Granted, it's more expensive than what I'm used to paying for a magazine, but to be honest with you, maybe magazine price had been going up a long time and didn't realise it. I mean, Warpstone charges that much, and Warpstone's a fantastic magazine. I don't begrudge paying £10 off for that, and I now don't begrudge paying £10 off for this either. In this adventure, not only do you have a nice self-contained adventure, which is non-standard, so it's not just dungeon crawls all the time, there's a lot of interaction with NPCs, there's a lot of avenues of expanding the original story and things like that. And it gave you background of the town you spend the majority of your adventuring time in, to the point of silliness where you wouldn't need it, but it's there if you wanted it. It gave you background on an ancient dead civilization, which granted at the time didn't make a lot of sense, but when you read issues 2 and issues 3 and these ancient civilizations become more to the fore, then it makes a lot more sense. There's an awful lot of foreshadowing in it, which encourages you to buy issues 2 through 6. And every 6 months they start another adventure path. So I'm a bit behind at the moment because I'm about 2 years behind, but I finally saw the point. They also released a campaign setting as well. Started with a gazetteer and then they did a full book hardback version, which has been reviewed by Game Geeks, I think it's called. Yeah, Game Geeks. And in my opinion, looking at that now, it gets me excited about high fantasy role playing again. I remember when I first bought the Forgotten Realms box set for AD&D 2nd edition. I opened it up and it was magic. I love box sets, I really do. I wish there were more box sets because I'm really gutted that they don't really exist anymore as far as the role playing community consists anymore. But I remember opening it up and reading The Grand Tour of the Realms, which is a great book. It gave me a lot of imagination. It inspired me to write stuff. I mean, I actually wrote an entire campaign from like 1 to 12th level. No, 1 to 6th level, sorry. Off a paragraph in that book because it was that rich in material. And I get the same impression from their setting. Everything that they do is set in their own world. It's a nice, traditional, high fantasy D&D-esque universe, although obviously you don't call it D&D anymore, you now call it Pathfinder. And it gets me excited. I am a bit worried about canon creep, but granted, all the stuff that's in here, although it's canon per se, you can quite easily ignore it because the end result is, unless you horribly muck up the campaign, the world itself will not change to accommodate this new scenario, this new situation you're in. Granted, you might want to play a couple more high-level games to fix the problem, but if, say, you get to the last boss and everyone dies, it's not going to ruin the campaign setting for another campaign you'll be playing later on. So that's pretty cool. There isn't that need to buy material for other places like there was with Forgotten Realms. So I hope it doesn't go down that route where 2, 3, 4 years down the line, and we're getting there now, that people don't buy into it because they see this huge mountain of books that have been published for it, and they have published quite a lot for this, and think, that's a lot to get involved in, I don't know where to start, it's quite intimidating, I think I won't bother. So I hope that doesn't happen. To alleviate that fact, I know that they're releasing books which accommodate material from the Pathfinder adventures, because there's little articles in the back of here like new monsters, expansions on the gods, things like that, and they're getting published in their own books, so you can skip out on the magazines if you want to. That's great. So Paizo, sorry about that. Paizo are making a lot of noise on the industry at the moment with Pathfinder and their branch of Pathfinder related products like the Chronicles and the magazine and things like that, and I wish them all the best of luck. And if you're into your high fantasy gaming and you remember those days when Forgotten Realms and Greyhawk were the shits, then go and give them a visit and see what they've got to offer you. Thanks for your time, guys. Goodbye.